Tanya Plibersek is the Minister for Environment and Water. She joins me from Canberra. Tanya Plibersek, welcome to 7:30.
Hi, Sarah.
One of the recent water ministers, David Littleproud, says the Murray-Darling Basin scheme is so complex, almost no one understands it. Do you understand it?
Well, I certainly do, and it is a complex plan, but it's got a simple objective. The objective is to make sure that we've got enough water in the river system for communities, for drinking water, for farmers, for industry, and of course for the environment. The Murray-Darling Basin plan was agreed on more than a decade ago. Sadly, progress since the Liberals and Nationals are in government has been too slow. This Restoring Our Rivers bill gets the Murray-Darling Basin plan back on track.
Well, explain this to us then. So you're legislating for an extra 450 gigalitres, and I'm always nervous around the numbers because they're difficult for people to take in, but it's a very large amount. You're legislating it. What would it mean? What would it change for the river?
Right, well, that's not exactly what's happening. The 450 gigalitres of additional environmental water is already in the Murray-Darling Basin plan. What we're doing with our Restoring Our Rivers bill is providing more time to deliver on the plan as it is now, more money to make sure that we've got money there for additional projects that are water-saving projects, more money for structural adjustment should it be necessary. We're also delivering more accountability to make sure that the plan actually is delivered. And of course, more options. I mean, we want to do on-farm efficiency measures, off-farm efficiency measures. We're looking at land and water purchases. We're looking at a whole range of things to make sure that we deliver the Murray-Darling Basin plan in full. All options are on the table. What's not optional is delivering the plan.
All right, we'll come back to the efficiency measures because there's obviously been a lot of questions around them. But just to stay with this extra 450 gigalitres. Now, up until now, it's been protected by a social impact test to protect communities. That is, you can only take out more water if you can demonstrate that it will have a neutral impact on communities. Are you now going to override that test?
Well, we will continue to look. In the delivery of the Murray-Darling Basin plan, we will absolutely consider social and economic impacts. We will consider value for taxpayers' dollars, and we will consider the environmental utility of any of the water that we purchase through voluntary water buybacks or any of the other measures we undertake. And this is not an effort to ignore impact on communities. In fact, if we don't pass the bill, by the end of this year, we'll see greater impacts on basin communities. Don't forget, Sarah, 3 million people that live in the Murray-Darling Basin rely on this river system for their drinking water. We saw communities in the last drought that had bone-dry riverbeds for more than 400 days at a time. Taking too much water out of the river system, of course it's bad for the environment, but it's also terrible for the communities that live on the river system and for farmers and for the economy the river water drives.
Let's just stay with this test because it was there for a reason, and up until this point, I think only 44...
It was there to stop water purchase. That's why the National Party supported it, and that's why the Productivity Commission has pointed out that it's wrong and counterproductive. In fact, of the 450 gigalitres of environmental water, when I became the Water Minister, just 2 had been delivered in 10 years. At that rate, we would be delivering the Murray-Darling Basin plan sometime around the year 4000. The Murray-Darling Basin plan was tied up by the Liberals and Nationals in rules that were designed to prevent the delivery of the plan, not to facilitate it.
But let's just talk about those communities because there will be impacts. How do you achieve the gains you're talking about without devastating those communities, without taking industry out of those communities, which all of them have a multiplier effect, as you know. If you take out one business, one agricultural business, it has an effect on the people who sell farm machinery, for example. So how do you measure and protect those communities?
Well, there's been some terrific work done by economists like Sarah Wheeler that show that the claims about the impacts of voluntary water purchase on farming communities have been overstated, particularly by the Victorian government, I might say. And there are all sorts of things that impact on farming communities: fuel prices, labour shortages, relationship with our trading partners. But what we know is that the largest year of water purchase in the past, 2011-2012, where close to 500 gigalitres of water was purchased, in fact, food and beverage prices went down by 3.2%. So we know that the relationship that the Victorian government and the irrigators are claiming is not a simple relationship. You know what has an impact on farm gate prices? Things like the supermarkets competing to offer $1 a litre milk to their customers. All sorts of things impact on food and beverage prices.
Let's just stay with this.
Imagine for a moment that it's just water purchase is simplistic in the extreme.
It's obviously not simple. No one's denying the complexity of the deal that you have to make here. At the same time, that test was put into the Parliament, I think with Tony Burke's support at the time. It seemed to have some value at the time to protect those communities. So what's changed that you now think it should be able to be set aside?
Well, the Productivity Commission has pointed out that the test as it's written is illogical and has prevented water recovery, including from willing sellers. Now, Sarah, what's illogical about this is the National Party would say it's fine for farmers to sell water to each other, it's fine for farmers to sell water to the Canadian Public Service Pension Fund, it's fine for farmers to sell water to the, companies associated with the Chinese government, it's fine for farmers to sell water to mining companies to use for mining purposes. The only time they're not allowed to sell water, according to the opponents of voluntary water purchase, is if they're selling it to the Australian government to put back into the river system for drinking water for Australians and to protect our environment. It's completely illogical.
Let's look at one of the other arguments which the Nationals are making, which is that you could achieve these gains through infrastructure improvements rather than through buybacks. Why is it that you prefer buybacks to infrastructure?
Well, I don't prefer buybacks to infrastructure. In fact, one of the things that restoring our rivers does is give an additional 2 years for infrastructure projects to be delivered that will save water and reduce the need for buybacks. That's why the National Party should be voting for this bill. It gives extra time. We've also said to the states and territories if they've got additional projects they want to bring forward, we're happy to consider them. What I'm saying, Sarah, is that yes, we will support water saving and water efficiency projects. We will support off-farm efficiency projects. The National Party had $1.3 billion set aside to do those projects. There's $1 billion still in the bank. They didn't do them when they were in government. They had $60 million for on-farm efficiency projects. They didn't spend a cent of that. We want to do off-farm and on-farm efficiency. And we want to
let me just check, before I run out of time, let me just check with you that by removing the cap that exists on water buybacks, you are encouraging the progress of water buybacks. You're obviously making it easier for the government to proceed with water buybacks.
This will be one tool in the box, and the other tools in the box will be the water saving and water efficiency projects. There'll be on-farm and off-farm efficiency. We'll look at land and water purchase. What we're trying to do is untie the brown tape that the National Party have wrapped up the Murray-Darling Basin plan in. They have deliberately sabotaged this plan for a decade. Sarah, I delivered more environmental water in my first 9 months as Water Minister than they did in 9 years. Their failures here are manifest and the warnings have been manifest. The Murray-Darling Basin Authority has given multiple warnings that the plan is off track. We've had 2 Water for the Environment Special Account reports. Both show the plan is off track. The Productivity Commission has done reports show that the plan is off track. And it's because of this deliberate sabotage. I'm not prepared to let that happen. We made a commitment. We'll be delivering water for basin communities and for the environment, and that's what we're going to do.
Tanya Plibersek, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and we didn't get lost in gigalitres, so thank you.
Thank you.